Hey folks, how you doing? Ken here. Just thought I'd do a quick update. It's filter clean, bottom drain, flush, pond vac time. I usually do it every 2 weeks during the summer. I find it's grand. So I videos on that going back. If you're interested in how I do it, I'll give you a quick update. And what I thought I'd do is just run through my filter system, how it works. But before we do that, you can see by the leaves, autumn has most definitely arrived. So cover's still off, which I think most of us have because it's been a really nice week. Fish are all great. I did add a new one. This Benegoy last weekend, really happy with him. Was up in Clearly Aquatics in Bangor, just outside Belfast, and had looked at them before, but there was a discount given the time of the season, so I decided to go for it. I'm very happy with him, but everything else, thankfully, given the problems I had at the start of the year, he's a bit camera shy, are thankfully behind me, and everything's well. The pond is an awful lot of debris, bits of leaves and food and all the rest. You think with two bottom drains that wouldn't happen, but it does. Just the wind, I find, it was very windy the week before last, and it tends to obviously put a lot of leaves in the pond, despite the net. I put a bit too much food in. I think I fed them manually because the feeder was empty. They're still feeding away. There was a lot of wind, and bits of debris and leaves get through, and they eventually sink down, and they don't all go into the bottom drain. So I have a vac, and I will vac it out. I always vac it out anyway. But they're good, and the two Tamasaba, which generally stick together, are in there somewhere, usually rooting around for food, given they're smaller. But in the sort of couple of months that I've been able to feed regularly, I've really got a good bit of growth. You can see one of the Tamasaba down the bottom there. Like the Yamabuki and the Chag and the Carrigashoy really getting good growth on them, considering this is an unheated pond. The two of my goldfish that survived the disaster at the start of the season are fine. Getting a bit of growth on the Platinum Ogon as well, and even the two Ginrin Chags that I put in, they were very small when they put them in, but I'd say they've doubled in size. Nice fish. There are a few, I think I said at the start of the season, I wanted to move on because of all the problems. I never got to that, so hopefully I'll do that next season. There's at least 3 or 4 in there. There's usually plenty of people. The back pond, still getting the odd lily bud here and there, but still getting the the blanket weed. Not as bad, probably because the amount of light and the pond has cooled down a bit. I'm not going to bother treating it. I'm just going to vac it out and refill it. I'll clean out. There's a few dead leaves. I'm getting to the stage anyway, I'd say, before I put the covers on, I generally cut the lilies down completely. So usually when it starts to head towards sort of 12 degrees or so, that's when I stick the covers on. As I say, I'm not heated, but it generally allows me then to feed probably wheat germ for another, I've gone up to Christmas before with the covers, keeping it above 10. Just depends on the weather, obviously. If we get a harsh winter, it will stop a lot quicker than that. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. At the moment they're feeding well. As I say, I put a bit too much in, but they'll either eat it or they'll go into the skimmer, one or the other. The reason I fed them manually because this yoke emptied on me last night, but I did fill it up. I had to open a new bag of food, but that's the fish and the pond all going well. And just as I talk about the filter, I have 2 bottom drains. Probably can't see them because there's one at the front there and one at the back, and then one skimmer, and I have 2 returns going into the back of that waterfall thing. As I said before, if I was doing it again, folks, I wouldn't do that back piece. I think it's a waste of space. Nice to have the lilies, but yeah, I wouldn't do it again. My wife sort of wanted to have some sort of water feature, but she even says herself the fish are enough decoration. But anyway, Yeah, just to talk a bit through the filtration, and I know some people have similar filters. So this filter is a combi, it's a CL35, and it's made by a company called DVS, who are in the Netherlands. Now, you may be familiar with that name because they also make filters for Quinicoy. I don't think Quinicoy keep that a secret. Quinicoy brand their own filters, but they are DVS filters, and the CL35, the exact same model, is available as a Quinicoy. Why didn't I buy in Quinicoy? Mainly because, unfortunately, of Brexit. It was after Brexit when I bought this. There was a lot of confusion in the UK, I'd even argue there still is, about the treatment of goods being exported for the UK for VAT. So I just decided to buy on mainland Europe. So I bought and had it shipped to Ireland, which worked in there about the same, so it was fine. This is a drum combi, as I say. There's 150 litres of Helix media in there. Some people have added more. I may, but it says, the manufacturer says 150 max, so that's what I have. The drum, I haven't done much with it. Could do with a bit of a clean. I would probably give it one before the winter really sets in. As I said, I have 3 inlets, so I'll just get my torch. I have 3 inlets. So the far one is, sorry if you can see there, the front bottom drain. The middle one is the skimmer, and this one is the end, or the back bottom drain, which is a spin drifter. So I only have one spin drifter. The reason being, I didn't like the idea of bubbles near the window. I want to be able to see the fish. So this is a gravity fed system. Now, a lot of us come from the aquarium hobby, and to be honest, it took me a while to get my head around pond filtration, because some of it is similar in terms of beneficial bacteria and media, although moving beds generally aren't used in the aquarium hobby. Drums are definitely different. Why did I go for a drum? Probably because the low maintenance. I was thinking very seriously about a Nexus 320, but I wanted to put it in this shed, which we already had and weren't really using it for anything bar storage. And you can probably see from that door, there's no way a Nexus 320 would fit through that door, so I kind of ruled it out. So I decided to go for the drum, and mainly due to low maintenance. It was probably twice the price of the Nexus, but you know, I think it is definitely much lower maintenance than the Nexus is. Now, I know you can get auto cleaning kits, and I know people who have Nexus, and if you already have a Nexus, should you upgrade to a drum, I would say it's very hard to justify it, because Nexus do a really good job as well, particularly if you go for, you know, a sieve or a drop-in drum, or the various options that are available for them for polishing the water. So this is gravity fed, as I said. So the way gravity fed works, so the water, this is at, I wouldn't say the same level of the pond, so the water level in here is at the same level of the pond. So if you have 2 vessels and you connect them by pipe and you fill one with water, the other will fill, and the water will settle by gravity at the same level. Even if this is at a higher piece of ground, as this is, obviously this is not as deep as the pond, but if it's on a higher piece of ground, it still settles at the same level. So to say it's gravity fed, so the water comes in by gravity and then it's pumped back out. So I've got, well, I have 3 pumps on this. I have 1 pump which is the return to the main pond, it's that one. I have a pump here which goes to the back pond for the waterfall. That is only used during the summer when the covers are off. I turn the back part off and don't have a waterfall during the winter. And then there's my trickle tower. We look at it in a minute. There's a pump there. So the way my trickle tower works is, that's the inlet to the trickle tower. So there's an outlet on that side. I had my UV in there originally, and it was in under the drum, and it knackered that seal because it's silicone. Again, there's another video on that. I had to replace it in various videos. There is another one of those outlets down there that's unused. There's just a blank on it. And here's Tarzan to make an appearance. So the water gets pumped from the drum up into the trickle, and I'll just open this up and show you. There is just, I do have a piece of Jap mat I put in there, and there also is under that, there's a bit of rock. That's not the actual media that comes with it. Under it, it's a sort of glass type, very light media. It's like that stuff, what would you call it, that stone that you used to use for sort of rubbing hard skin off your feet, it comes to me, but it's sort of kilned glass stuff. There's similar stuff. There's somebody up the road renovating an old cottage, and they're putting it in the floor to help with rising damp. Seemingly they use it for that as well. So that's just to sort of polish the water a bit. You can see where the water comes out, and there's a bit, but it's fairly clean, and then it just trickles down. So that doesn't actually fill up, the water just trickles down through it, and it's a very simple system actually. It trickles back through it, and you can see the pipe there goes around the back of the drum and back in here. Simplest way to do it. Why didn't I use a backy shower? To be honest, I'm not mad on backy showers. The look of them on the pond, on my pond, it is open. There's no sort of wall. A lot of people build a pond, you know, the standard design is a pond, and then there's a kind of a back wall with your filter shed or your filter, whichever way you've done it. I don't have that, so I've nothing really to secure a backy shower to. Now I know when there's media in them and there's water flowing through, there's a fair weight. Like there is a reasonable weight in that. Not that stand is really overkill for it now, because as I say, it doesn't fill with water. And when I did fill a barrel with water just to PP the media to clean it before I started using it and I setting it up, the media actually floats. It's so light. It's almost, it's a porous type material as you would expect. So I added that about 18 months after I put this in. You'll probably, if you watched my videos before, know I had different media in there. This stuff that I got when I bought the filter, and it was just a generic media I bought. It wasn't any brand. I think it's K3 or something it was called. It's no longer used, but you can get it in generic form. It really didn't mature for me. I don't know why. I just had continuous nitrite problems, and there last November I bought 150 litres of K1 or Helex, because that's what DVS recommends. You can use K1 micro, but I believe if you're ordering through Quinnicoy or DVS, they will have to modify this grill here, otherwise the media fits through it. Obviously the Helex doesn't. So that's why I went for Helex. That sort of went brown. I did soak it for about 24 hours in PP, but it did mature fairly quickly. I will test nitrite now when I get started, but I really haven't had any issues. I suppose between that, having a much bigger surface area per 150 litres, it's nearly twice the surface area of the old stuff. And then obviously, you know, that maturing. A pond filter, you know, people would say it takes a year to 18 months before the media is really mature, you know, and yeah, that's definitely my experience. And as I say, that other stuff didn't really mature for me for some reason. So the way the drum works is, so the water, as you can see, this is known as, I'll just take a picture, the dirty side, you may hear it mentioned, of a drum. So this is where, for the want of a better word, the dirty water comes in from the three inlets you can see down there, and it rises up. I'll show you here. It's not easy, but there is a hole there. You can probably just see the water goes into the center of the drum. So the water goes into the center of the drum. This seal here, make sure it doesn't leak out, and the water then, or probably most of it, I wouldn't say it's 100% sealed out that tube. The water then trickles outwards through what is essentially a sieve on the drum. Now you can get, I think this is 80 micron, you can get up to 120 micron, but obviously the smaller micron you get, probably the better water purification you get, but obviously your throughput isn't as good. Now this is supposed to be CL35, good for turning over 35,000 litres an hour. Filter manufacturers are notorious for overstating the flow, and that flow could be down to, you know, perfectly straight pipes from the pond, the filter being right beside the pond, and the filter being perfectly clean and the water being relatively clean. I'll talk about turnover in a minute, but I find I don't get anywhere near that, nor do I want it, to be honest. So what happens is, on this side, as this sieve starts to clog up on the drum, the water level on this side drops. So this side will always stay the same as the pond. This side will drop, and you can see there's a float switch there. Now on some of these drums, on most of Quinicoys, there is probes. Float switch does the same thing. The reason mine has a float switch and not the probes is because I went for an option of a gully flush, and that's what this valve is. It's an electronic valve controlled by control box up there, and every 10 washes of the filter there is a hose. You can sort of see it, can you? Here, sorry, that pipe there, and there's a black hose there. It's not easy to see it there. Goes in and up around into the gully and supposedly flushes out the gully. To be honest with you, you can see there, and I found dirt up the back here. It doesn't really work that well, but anyway. So what happens is, as the water drops to a certain level here, it triggers a rinse cycle in the drum. So what happens is, this motor then turns again by the control box. So there is a motor drum motor filter which triggers this. This spins the drum. At the same time, you'll see the pump there. Now there's several options for these pumps for drums. Mine is internal in the clean side in the biofilter. You have people run them on the outside, either with filtered water, or they take water from the drum, they sit on the outside, or they take tap water. And you could use tap water, because remember, you're flushing the drum, it goes into the gully and it goes out to waste. That gully then, you can see that waste pipe goes out through the wall and down into a shower out the back. So all that happens, I think, for about 10 or 15 seconds, cleans all the residue off the drum, goes down. You can see I'm going to give this a clean in a few minutes. Then you start again, your water level comes back up, and the whole. So I find mine this time of year, it probably cleans every 15-20 minutes or so. But it does keep the water. I mean, you've seen the pond, the water is very clear. There's not an awful lot of maintenance to do to it. So I'm very happy, and it's been really faultless, bar that seal going, which was my fault, because the UV light, it's not, you know, I know people who have them there, but it's not the best place. I now have my UV just hanging in there. There is a bracket for the UV there, but I find that little grommet there that the wire goes through, my understanding is they are not supposed to be submerged. They are water resistant, but they're not completely waterproof. And if I put it into that hole and secure it, that little grommet is underwater, and I think that'll be a problem. That's why it's just hanging there, but it has worked well for me. And that's really it. You know, when you get sort of to understand them, they are quite simple. I also have a trickle in as well. So this is a big blue full of carbon. So I've got a tap here, comes into the shed, and that lever there, the blue lever, controls the flow. And I have this thing here, DigiFlow, which tells me there's 0.35 litres a minute going into the pond, and that's that little thing. There's a little wheel in there that the water turns, and it's able to give me a measurement, which is useful. Now I know you could do it, you know, with a jug and just say, you know, for a minute, run it for a minute and say, right, that gives me half a litre, I want quarter that, and try. You could do it that way as well, but at least I come in here, I look at it, A, I know it's on, and B, I know what it's doing. So that works well for me. The carbon, I find, I was just looking, I've got about 6 months out of that lot, but when I was treating with medication, I had, and a lot of medication, if you look at my videos, I had it turned way down. Generally, I find during the winter, every 6 months, during the summer, I do it every 3 months, because I generally have it running at around the 0.35 to 0.4 litres a minute. In the winter, because you know, I'm not really feeding, things are much quieter, I drop it down to 0.2 litres a minute. So the water, it trickles in here, and then there's an overflow on the skimmer, and the water overflows there. So it does a kind of an ongoing automatic water change. And that's really it. The temperature, it was 16.5. This little probe is out of the water there at the minute, which for this time of the year is actually quite good. It's been a really mild week and sunny. The temperature did go down as low as 15, but came back up. But just looking at the weather forecast, it's going to get a lot colder, so it wouldn't surprise me if the covers are on by the end of the week, or the end of the month rather. You can see there as well, with drums, with the sieves, you know, there's always a little bit of dust gets through them. So you know, you get a little bit of a dusting there of silt. You know, they're not, if I had a smaller micron drum, yes, it would probably do a better job. But, you know, they do let a little bit in, and I find as well I have to vac the bottom of the, it's not that bad there now, but I do get a little bit of a collection of debris in that end of the, you can see just through the grids there in the biochamber. There's a little bit of debris. I just vac it up, because it's not great to have crap sitting in the pond that causes bacterial outbreak and trichodynia and all that sort of stuff you're more prone to. So as a filter, as a brand, in terms of Quinnicoy or DVS, I really would recommend. I mean, there's a few really good brands out there. These are definitely one of them. You know, they're fairly bulletproof. I know I've heard guys who bought them from Quinnicoy would say the service is exceptional, really good. I found when I've bought it, I've gone direct to DVS with questions, and their level of support is really, Patrick there just gets back to me really quickly, answering questions, and I've had no issues. And that was even before I bought it. You know, I had a few questions for him, and really very helpful, which I'm sure they got a lot of questions as well. In terms of the outlets, so I have 3 inlets which I use. I don't use the 3 outlets. I just use 2. So as I said, this one here goes into this pump and up to the back pond. This one here goes out to the main pond, and there's 2. I just have 2. I don't know why I'm going out here, because you can't really see them. I just have 2 returns. I know people put them in different places and try and create a flow. I just have them, you can't see them, just at sort of 2/3 down on this wall. Work fine. You know, you sort of think when you're building a pond that when you have a 110mm or a 4-inch pipe that you're going to get a load of suction. You really don't, and that sort of brings me on to flow. Like you on a big pipe, the amount of suction you get isn't huge, and it's really subtle the way it draws waste towards the bottom drain. The skimmer is better, because unless it's very windy, it tends to push the waste down into one corner of my pond. Hence I said it's windy, and instead of the waste going into the skimmer, it tends to collect in one corner in the pond, because we get the winds generally coming from the back of the garden, and it sits there and eventually just sinks to the bottom, and I get that problem. But as I say, I have a vac and I can vac it up. In terms of turnover, to be honest, I think lower is better. I turn this over. As I say, I have 3 pumps. This one on the doesn't count on in terms of flow on the shower, because it sort of pumps out and pumps straight back in again. But the main pond I'm running at about 30% and the waterfall at 30% as well. So that's about 60% of 40,000 watts. So, you know, I'm probably turning the pond over. What would that be? About around, I'd say, once every 2 hours, if not even that. And I find, particularly in the summer, the water looks better. Maybe it's because largely the water has more contact with the UV when it's on, I don't know, but I find the lower the flow, the better the water clarity. And I've heard Tim Waddington said that on a few of his videos of bead filters. People were not happy with their water flow, and he said, well, you know, try turning it right down. Now, you don't want to turn it way down because the water has to be in contact with the media and keep an eye on your levels. But you hear people saying, oh, I want to turn it over twice an hour. I think that's far too much. And it's costing you money at the end of the day to do that. So I think once every 2 hours or so, for me, I find works well. I'm keeping an eye on the nitrites and ammonia. They're fine. Fish are all fine. And my water clarity is good. So, you know, I find with that, and you're sort of looking at ways with the price of electricity over the last few years, looking at ways of keeping the bills as low as possible. Obviously not compromising the health of the pond or the fish, but you know, no unnecessary use of electricity if you can avoid it. So that's what I try and do. And then, as I say, during the winter, I find the covers go on. There's no need for the UV in the winter. I find there's very little light. Never had green water problems, so I turn off the UV and I generally take it out of the filter just to preserve it a bit better. I turn off the back ponds, so I just leave the lilies sitting in a foot of water, and every couple of months I'll vac it out and give them a water change, and they're absolutely fine over the winter. I do have a light cover I put on the back part of the pond, just to, and I'll talk about that when I do it, and there's previous videos would have, just to keep leaves and crap out of the back piece, although I'm not using it. And then I've heavier covers that I use for the main part of the ponds. And that's it. I'm going to turn off my trickle in. I'll just do that now. You see the state of the garden. So that's it. I am starting to think, given the problems I had earlier in the year about heating, and I've sort of said before, I won't bother, like I said. And, you know, just looking at air source heat pumps, they've definitely got cheaper, and there's other options. And that Koi guy in Ireland here, I don't know if you've seen his videos, Ross, he's after putting one on his pond, and I'm going to keep an eye on that and see. And I think he got it for something like €1,200, like it was cheap and nothing fancy, no digital control box or anything like that on it. It's just a sort of a cheap as chips, does the job pool filter. I think it's Chinese made, so I'll keep an eye and see how Ross goes. And you know, I did sort of plan at some stage that I may put an air source heat pump, and I've several options. There's out the back, I have the side here, which is a bit, that's my piece of insulation I put in the pond window on very cold nights. Whether it does anything is another thing that needs to be cleaned up, but I could put it here and just plumb it in through the wall, or there is the back wall of the shed as well. But it would mean having to reroute this main return, which is this one on the right, having to put a spur off it and out into the heat pump and back again. But you know, it's an option. But you know me, I've mentioned things, I was talking about that for probably 18 months before I did it, so don't be holding your breath. It's something I may do, but it'll probably be at least a year away before I do it. You know, even just people find them very beneficial during the summer to keep the water up over 20 degrees constantly, or 24, and especially in the summer months, because they draw heat out of the air. they're very economical to run. They're not as economical in the colder winter months, but then you're only really looking for 10 or 12 degrees. Again, stability is key. The temperature is not that important, and I found, and I think part of my problems at the start of the season was it was just so unseasonably cold. The temperature was going up and down by 4 or 5 degrees in the space of a week, and that, you know, particularly around that crucial time of 10 or 12 degrees, that wasn't helping the koi when our immune system kicks in and out. But anyway, I'm going to leave it at that, or I'll blabber on for another 10 minutes. Listen, thanks for watching. If you have any questions or comments, or wanted to know any more about the filter system, let me know. Other than that, I'll leave it and talk to you again. Cheers.